Hi, everybody. Welcome to Jon Ferrian Live. We're here on Sunday night again. It's middle of May now, 2021, and we are here in the great outdoors. We're having such beautiful weather here in the Pacific Northwest that I decided to move the show out of the house and out on the back patio. Hope you guys can enjoy some beautiful weather this weekend yourself, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what you were doing this weekend. So anybody who's following me, hopefully you got to see yesterday, Saturday, Edith and I went out to Mount Baker, Washington, and did some snowmobiling up there. Had a beautiful, beautiful day up on the mountain. And today, Edith and I went and took the Jeep up and scouted out some trails for next weekend. We're going to be doing some snow park cleanup here in the Pacific Northwest, and maybe sneaking up and going a little snowmobiling after the snow park cleanup. So, again, as you're pulling in, watching, make sure you share the show out. For sharing the show, you're going to get in it to win some Zone Pro goggles. So Zone Pro snow goggles from Fly Racing is the prize that's eligible for you guys tonight by sharing the show out. So drop it in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from and get it sharing out. And we got Skinner Bell here from Wyoming. Got Tia Smith here from Santa Barbara, California. Welcome, welcome. All right, guys, we're gonna bring Summer Andersen on here in just a minute or two. So we got Aaron McCarthy here watching from Washington. Mr. Jason Blair is here from Alpine, Wyoming. Jeff Stoll here from Steamboat Springs, Colorado. We got lots of folks rolling in. So guys, make sure you share this out and get us some exciting things going on in the show tonight. So we got an amazing story here to share with you guys tonight, and I'm really honored to have Summer on. So I'm going to bring her on here in just a minute, and we'll do that in 3, 2, and 1. Oops, wrong button. Sorry, Summer. I hit the wrong button. Let's try this one. There we go. How are you doing, Summer?
Good. How are you, John?
Very good, very good. So I got lucky enough to sit outside a little bit, and you and I chatted about it beforehand. I'm like, you're in Idaho, right? Is where you're at.
Yes, yep. Eastern Idaho, and I considered joining you outside, but I might be just a little bit cold.
Yeah, might be colder out there. It would hit almost 80 today here in the Pacific Northwest. It was amazing. Had the
Oh,
top
that
off the
sounds
Jeep, the doors
beautiful.
off the Jeep. It was a good time. So
Yeah. Me and my kids have been putting the top down on my Jeep, and like they just love it. The weather's been fantastic. We were so excited for spring.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So Summer, when the work that you do around avalanche awareness and the work that I've done around avalanche awareness, it was inevitable that eventually somebody made the introduction between the two of us, and that's exactly what happened. I kept hearing your name pop up. Literally, I was in Alpine, Wyoming, and Jackson Hole, and your name kept popping up because I was hanging out with some of your friends, right? Like Tony Jenkins was there, and
Yeah.
David Drew, and then Aaron McCarthy, of course, who you've been, helped out a little bit with some
Oh
avalanche
yeah.
packs, and so your name just kept popping up over and over again in the last couple of months, and it was inevitable we were going to meet, and I'm so glad we got connected.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, we've had a lot of mutual friends. So everyone kept saying, add him on Facebook. That's someone you need to know. That's someone that can help. So
Yeah,
yeah, Aaron Stafford, I think, was the one that officially did the introduction.
very
And
much. Yep.
he
Yeah, the formal
is,
introduction. Yes. So, yep.
yes, he is such a good friend. He was actually my very first real estate client, and I just absolutely love him. And then Aaron McCarthy, who you've done on your show before,
Yes.
he helps me out so much with my nonprofit. And yeah, he's such a good friend.
Awesome. We're going to get into a lot of those details tonight. So again, if guys, everybody who's watching right now, we've got some live viewers here ready to rock and roll. Drop it in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from, and be sure to share this out. We got a really important message we want to get out to everybody tonight, and we're going to let everybody get introduced to Summer next. So Summer, just give us a little background and tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive into kind of the story and the Avalanche Project. So
All right. Well, my name is Summer Andersen. I am a widowed single mom of three incredibly beautiful children. I am a realtor here in Eastern Idaho. Um, I have a nonprofit for avalanche awareness, which is kind of random, seeing as I'm not a super avid snowmobiler. But
yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of like the general information. I grew up here in Idaho, and I absolutely love it here. I can't imagine living anywhere else.
That's awesome. You said that's where you originally grew up, was in the Idaho as well?
Yep, yep. I grew up about 45 minutes from where I'm at right now, and I obviously haven't wandered too far.
Nice, nice.
It's beautiful here, and the older I get, the more I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things I've had the opportunity, I'm from central Minnesota originally, and I've had the opportunity to move out to the East Coast to New Hampshire for a couple of years, and then back to Minnesota for another 10 years, and then I've been out here in Seattle, kind of in the Pacific Northwest for I don't know, the last 8.5 years, I think it's been now.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's funny because you move around, but it's still always home is still home, right? Like no matter where you go
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and where you come back to. But I got to say, I'm a big fan of, having no snow to plow in my driveway, but to get to go and play in the snow. So there's some benefits to
There you
living out
go.
here for sure. So
Yeah, you have the best of both worlds. I have a
that's
lot of
awesome.
snow to shovel.
That's awesome. All right, Summer. So, I think in the show notes here, we've got it there too. And this is going to be, just even for me to talk about, it's such a difficult subject to talk about because I think it's always, in the avalanche awareness world and education, it literally is worst case scenario is the day that we hear someone lost their life in an avalanche, right? And, your story is a very meaningful one. And the fact, and I think the really unique thing is that you personally have taken on the platform of kind of driving avalanche awareness from the position of a widow, right? Like, your husband was a snowmobiler, he was killed in an avalanche, and this is, kind of become a way for you to give back and to support your grieving process. And there's so much of this we're going to get into tonight that I think will be really, really engaging for everybody to watch and a very unique perspective. I know for me, I've been doing this for years now, the show and all this stuff, and definitely this is a different perspective than I've ever heard before. And so I really appreciate you taking the time in your life to do the work that you're doing. And would ask that you just kind of take us back to that day and maybe the morning before the accident happened. And I'm assuming Adam was at your house and was going to go snowboarding with some friends. Can you start there and fill us in on what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I do appreciate you taking the time to share my story with your audience. You're absolutely right. It is a little bit of a unique perspective that not everyone gives. Um, just because, yeah, I wasn't there, but I am the one that was left behind. And
Yeah.
so it is unique. And, as long as people are listening, I'm willing to share my story. So, yeah, Adam and I had been married for 8 years. We had just celebrated our 8-year anniversary a few days before this, and I had an 8-week-old baby girl.
Wow.
I had our 3-year-old little boy who has significant disabilities, and our 6-year-old little boy. And it was just a Wednesday afternoon, and he had finished his work early and said, I'm going to go riding with some friends. And, kind of left later in the day, which was unusual, but they were all excited to get up on the mountain and go. And, it's not uncommon for us to have fatalities in our community. And that was always a concern of mine. I'd worked in motorsports before I had become a stay at home mom. And so that was always kind of a fear of mine. But yeah, so he left that day about noon to go riding, and we were at home just running the kids back and forth to school and their appointments and doing all that. He took off to go riding, and then it wasn't until about 5 o'clock that I realized, I'm like, oh, I haven't heard from him yet at all, and started just doing the nighttime routine with my kids. I had them in
Yeah.
the bathtub, and by that point, a couple hours had passed, and I hadn't been too concerned. Adam was a very avid outdoor enthusiast. He
Yeah.
did all the things. And it was every time he'd go, I'd be home. He said he'd be home at a certain time. And he was always late, which I'm sure everyone's wives and girlfriends and boyfriends and husbands can
Yeah.
relate to.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I wasn't too concerned at the time. And then, I pulled up Facebook on my phone. It was about 7 p.m. at that point, and the local news had covered that there had been an avalanche in Island Park on Mount Jefferson, and a snowmobiler had been caught. And so at that point, my alarm started going off because I knew that was an area that they all like to go. So I started calling and couldn't get a hold of anyone in the party. Their wives hadn't heard from them. And finally, I resorted to calling Fremont County Search and Rescue.
Hmm.
And while I was on the phone with them, they hurried and put me on hold. And while I was on hold, I got a call from his childhood best friend. And at that point, he just said my name, and that was it. He just said Summer, and I instantly knew. I just said, no, 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 no. And honestly, at that point, like I kind of lose a little bit of my memory exactly of how that conversation went. And, I had my kids there with me and, my son was standing there next to me. Finally, after a few phone calls, Fremont Search and Rescue called me and they said, Mrs. Anderson, I'm sorry, but it appears that it is your husband and the conditions are too dangerous. We can't not get to him. And, even in that moment, as much as I wanted to know where he was and to have him located, I understood that it wasn't fair for me to ask these volunteers to stay out. And so I said, I understand, but if you can, like, please find him. And they just said, we're sorry, we can't right now. So yeah, it wasn't until that next morning that, search and rescue went up. And along with search and rescue, so many people went up.
Yeah.
Friends, people who didn't know him, people who were just visiting in the area, they showed up ready to go look for him.
Yeah.
And, I have pictures of just trailers lined up down the road and, all of these incredible people just standing there waiting to be told what to do and where to go look. And
Yeah.
search and rescue got to the area, and before they even were able to start their search, the avalanche trained dog found him before they even started.
Wow.
And, unfortunately, he was really close to where their search began, and he was 14 inches under the snow.
Yeah.
So, it just, it was really discouraging to hear how close he was to everyone's original search.
Yeah.
But they were able to recover him really quickly and bring him home so that we could say goodbye.
Wow. It's one of those stories that, you've already told it to me before, and just hearing it again, it's just live. It's so powerful and so moving, to know that was going on. And I think, you had shared with me in our conversation that, hindsight being 2020, him and his group, did not have avalanche training and they did not have the proper avalanche equipment, which, to this day, that's one of the reasons that I'm on the mission that I'm on, right, is to get the word out. And I
Oh
know
yeah,
that's a big part
absolutely.
of what you're doing too. And we're going to go into more detail of what you've been doing going forward now, after the accident there. But I just want to reflect on the fact of, there's so many situations where, maybe the training would have caused the group to make different decisions that day, right? Maybe the right
Yeah.
equipment, even if the accident happened, might have, provided the ability for your husband to still be here with you today. And those are really, really simple, kind of black and white factual things that I want all of the audience to just hear and understand is that, these type of things don't have to happen, right? It's,
Yeah.
accidents do happen. You can't always control what happens, but so much of it in this situation, probably could have been prevented. I think, that's something that you shared with me firsthand. And I think that's that moment that we just need to take this moment and pause and go, ask ourselves and look in the mirror. If we're snowmobilers, what are we doing to make sure that we're ready for whatever happens in the backcountry and be prepared to avoid it? And then, be prepared if you have the equipment and, if there is an accident that you know what you can do to make the most of that moment if you have to, right? Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
And Adam was very much the same way. He grew
yeah,
up snowmobiling, but he did that from infancy on.
yeah,
That was his life. And he was of the, I don't want to say typical mindset because I don't think that's fair, especially as the industry is changing.
for
But a
sure.
lot of
Yeah,
people have the mindset that it's not going to happen to me.
yeah,
And unfortunately, that was the mindset that my husband had.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, a
And
lot of
when we
people,
talked about it,
yeah, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I've ridden this area 100 times. I've never seen it slide
oh,
before."
yeah,
Like I ride this area every year, every year. The problem is the snow is not the same every year, right? Like that's the part is,
exactly.
you could ride the same area and have it never slide, and all of a sudden this year that magic combination of snow and ice and weather and or frost and all those things can just, just cause just a slight situation.
And that's exactly it because that
Yeah,
day, no one took the time to check the forecast and it was considerable conditions
yeah,
that day, and no one in the party had beacons or bags or probes or any of the equipment.
yeah.
And it was just, and I told you this in our previous conversation, there is no blame to be placed on anyone.
Oh,
Like what's
exactly.
happened happened.
Yeah,
And there are no hard feelings for anyone. However, the conditions could have been different.
Yeah.
The recovery could have been different. Who knows what the outcome would have been, but it could have been different and it should have been different.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where my platform
Amen.
is, the education of it can make a huge difference on your life and your family's lives. And that's what I do. That's why I do this. Like,
Yeah.
that's exactly why.
That's awesome. We're going to get into more of those details in a few minutes here. Talk to us a little bit about, that time after, your husband was brought off the mountain. There's so many things that happened in that first few weeks and, months afterwards that, many, many points of transition that happened for you going forward. If you want to kind of just start filling us in on what was life like post avalanche, right?
It was an incredibly challenging period of my life for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I had a newborn baby. I was, had two little boys, and I had a real situation on my hands aside from absolutely crippling grief.
Yeah.
I it was it was devastating, and the last 3 years have been the most challenging that I could possibly imagine. And even now, I mean, it is 3 years later and it's still
Yeah.
not it still has not gotten easier.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I just kind of found myself really trying to find a way to figure out how I was going to take care of my family on my own.
Yeah.
And but funnily enough, aside from that, I wanted to make sure that this was not for no reason. Like,
Yeah.
I still in that moment was like, okay, this shouldn't have happened. Like, why did this happen? Trying to make sense of it. And I was very fortunate. I have incredible friends and neighbors. And the day of Adam's funeral, I was talking to my neighbor and good friend, and I just said, there's got to be something that I can do. Like, what if I just bought a couple beacons and I let people borrow them for free? And they were like, that's actually a really good idea. And, I just, at the beginning, I thought that was the best I could possibly do.
Yeah.
And, before I'd gotten married and had kids, I worked at Action Motorsports here in Idaho Falls
Okay.
and kind of ran my idea by them and just said, this is kind of what I want to do. And they said, let's have an open house. Let's have a avalanche, open house where we teach people and we can raise some money and we'll get you some equipment that you can rent out. And that's where it started. And, fortunately for me, the media wanted to kind of cover that. So I did a variety of interviews and I got a lot of support from the community and a lot of support from the snowmobiling community. And with that, I was able to buy like full packs, like airbag, probe, shovel,
Yeah.
beacon, all of it. I was able to raise enough money to put warning signs all over Island Park where all those trailheads are. Got them approved with Forest Service and they helped us put them up. And ever since then, it's kind of just been going and going. And I've been so blessed that I've had so much awesome support that
Yeah.
here I am still
Yeah.
3 years later talking about it. So
Well, I want to
it's
pause
been
you for a
great.
second because you mentioned this briefly, and I know some of the details, and I want to make sure the audience knows this too. Is you had just referenced that you had done a few interviews, right? Let's talk a little bit about the interviews that you did, right? These weren't just like, like this, right? Like you and I on Facebook. These were national news organizations, is my understanding, right? Weren't they?
Yeah, I did one for People Magazine, just the online one, and
Yeah.
then yeah, all of the local news um, outlets here
Yeah.
covered it, and then it got shared in a variety of places.
Yeah.
And from that, I got a lot of support. The more reach it got, the more support it got.
Exactly.
When
Yep.
it got to Utah, I had an individual, Kelly White, reach out, and he is an attorney there in Utah, and he had lost his older brother on that same mountain years before, and he
Wow.
said, let me help you. He's like, I'm going to set you up on a nonprofit. And his family has been so supportive through
Wow.
the whole thing. And, it's just people like that, like the White family that have reached out and said, like, we believe in what you're saying. Like, we want
Yeah.
to help you. And it's been incredible. So yeah, I've been really blessed. I've met a lot of amazing people. I've just been so fortunate. I've been able to write a couple articles for a few publications and share my story that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's always been very well received, and I'm really grateful because yeah, I'm still able to talk about it and share my story.
Yeah. Well, and I know, like, over, and again, we talked about this as well too, but very similar to what I do, and the feedback I get a lot of times too is you've been doing the work that you've been doing, you've been able to interact with people who you've seen it really make a difference to them personally, right? Can you share, without giving personal information of people's names, but just some of the experiences that you've had on the types of feedback you've gotten on the difference you've been able to make to others by sharing the story, to having the equipment available, that kind of thing. And then what we'll do is we'll go from there into more the details of the project itself and the equipment you have available and how you're doing it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And that is honestly the sole reason why I'm still doing this.
yeah,
Like to be
I hear you.
completely honest, when I have a public speaking engagement, the people that approach me afterwards and say, "I heard your story and I ride differently because of that," or people who message me on social media and say, "I heard this and it resonated with me." That is the entire reason why I'm still talking about this.
Yeah,
Like the people that tell me that, that's why you are still seeing me.
yeah, yeah.
Is
Yeah,
because of those people.
yeah, and I'll share with you, like in the comments here, there's a couple of comments that have come in. I'll share with you, and one I've just shared on the screen here with everybody is this is from Mai Lin, who coincidentally is going to be on the show sometime in the near future as well. She was the
I've
lucky,
met her.
yeah,
She's fantastic.
she's the
Yeah.
lucky recipient of this year's All American Heroes Foundation snowmobile giveaway.
Yes.
So she's here watching with us tonight, and it says, "Your story gives me chills. Thank you for your strength and of that of your family and supporters, to for the preserve." Perseverance to or perseverance, I'm sorry, my bad, to help improve rider safety in the sport. What you do is so important. So there's an
Thank
amazing
you.
comment there right for you right away. And there's just some other condolences to you and your family for the story. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing the story. Um, yeah, I think just amazing things going on, and every time we tell a story like this, it definitely touches people and it makes a difference in the community. And hopefully, that I guess anybody who watches this, that's my call to action is take action. If you've been complacent about
Absolutely.
getting your education, getting your equipment to get out and to be safe in the backcountry, take this as the sign, this incremental sign that now is the time to take action. So
Yeah, please do. And I try and always make a point of that and like I don't want to discourage it. Like I
yeah,
think it's awesome. Especially where I live. I'm like we live in the best place in
yeah,
the world for the sport, but so I don't want to discourage people from doing that. However, if you're going to do it, like please just do it with the knowledge
yeah,
and caution that you need to so that you can make it home at the end of the day because essentially like that's what's most important. I've got these three incredibly beautiful children
yeah,
and it's really tragic that their dad isn't here to experience this phase of my life with
yeah.
me.
Well, they will grow up though knowing that their dad has made a difference in the world, through you, of course. But
I really hope so, and that's one thing that I do take a little pride in that hopefully one day I can show him and be like, "Hey, that was really hard, but look, like
yeah,
let's go up to the mountains and I'm going to show you the signs that I put up and
yeah,
you know, hopefully they can see that."
yeah. Well, let's real briefly touch on ways that people can support you, and then what we'll do is we'll start going into the story again, and then we'll kind of wrap up again at the end. We'll cover it again. But right now, if somebody did want to make a donation to the Adam Andersen Avalanche Project, is there a way to do that? Can they reach out to you personally? Like, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this past year has probably been my most successful year with the project,
Okay.
actually. Unfortunately with COVID, I wasn't able to do my annual fundraiser.
Yeah.
But aside from that, my rental bags were used more than ever. In fact, they were days where they were all rented out, which has
Wow.
never really happened. So right now I'm in the process of redoing the website so that it can be more accessible. It's adamandersen.org. Anderson with an EN. But while I'm doing that, if anyone feels the need to donate at this moment, I would encourage them to reach out to me, via social media or however. I try and make myself very
Yeah.
accessible, until I can get that figured out so that way I can keep growing on this and hopefully get more bags for the public to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the best way is those donations or watch for our annual fundraiser in October.
That's great. And as soon as the live show here is done, I'll be going back in and editing it and tagging you in the post so people can,
That'd be great.
just click the tag and or the Adam Anderson Avalanche Project, and
Yeah.
either way they can send you messages through there and reach out to you. So,
Yep.
so let's talk a
And
little bit. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say on Facebook, that's kind of been my main sounding board recently. I do try and share as many education opportunities that there are, avalanche forecasts in our area, any big news in the industry. I always try and share that, especially during the season.
Perfect.
Try and at least do that daily. So, if you would like, come join us on the Facebook page and kind of keep up with what we're doing there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about some of the pieces of the project, and maybe if you're okay with it, let's start with the signs that you started making, and kind of what do they say, where have they been starting to go up, and how is that expanding?
Yeah, so we were able to get these signs. We got them approved by the Forest Service, like I said, and we put them up at every trailhead in the Island Park area. And then the next year, we were able to put them up in the Palisades area
Hmm.
here in my side of the state. So I think we've put up 18 signs at trailheads,
Wow.
and it just says this is avalanche country, and it gives the website on where you can check the forecast for the day, and just encourages you to make sure that you've got your equipment and the knowledge on what you're doing. Something that we don't have here in Idaho, which I know is a little bit different than some areas, such as Colorado. So yeah, I've been working towards that. I would love to get them absolutely everywhere. I've had a few people in your area reach out and say, "Hey, we'd like some here," and I'm
Yeah.
just like, "Tell me how I can
Yeah.
help."
I'm
So
gonna, I'm gonna
that
share
would
a
be great.
picture of
Yeah.
the sign. So this is you holding up one of the signs that goes out into the backcountry. So
Yep.
I'll leave it up there for a second so people can read it. And then down in the lower corner, it says the Adam Andersen Avalanche Project. The little mountain scenes down there below that. It's kind of the brand of the project that you have. So
Yeah, and I like to put in memory of Adam Andersen at the bottom, just because I feel like that makes it a little bit more personal. They're like,
yeah,
okay, like this actually happened to an individual,
yeah,
and I hope that that just resonates with writers as they're heading out. They're like, okay, like I do actually need to take some caution while going out. So
yeah.
that's the hope anyway.
Okay. And then what other pieces are there to the Avalanche project? It sounds like, Avalanche equipment is being made available, and is it for free, for rent? Like, talk to us about the project, what you have bought, and how it's being used and leveraged.
Yeah. So that's probably the biggest part of it, is
Okay.
that I have whole avalanche packs for rent completely for free to the
Yep.
public. You can get them in Idaho Falls at Action Motorsports or in Island Park at High Mountain Adventures, and it includes your airbag, your probe, your shovel, and your beacon at absolutely no cost. We just ask that you please return it when you're done,
Yeah.
and that's like pretty much it. So we're pretty trusting, but yeah, it's been a really good program. And like I said, this last year the usage was higher than it's ever been, and
Yeah.
I found myself running back and forth trying to make sure that everyone who was coming that needed one had them. So I'm really hoping to provide more to the public this year, and possibly into more locations would be ideal. So you never know, but I do love that, and I've also offered a couple of scholarships, kind of like you do,
Yep.
to people to take their avalanche awareness courses. And level one, I think, is all that I've been able to provide. But
Yeah.
eventually, I would like to do more of like the rescue and recovery ones.
Okay.
But big plans in the future.
Yep. No worries. No worries. So the Avalanche equipment is out there and available, and then there's now another phase of the project that's happening with some beacon check stations. Is that right?
Yeah, the All American Heroes.
Let's
Aaron
talk.
McCarthy was
Yeah. Let's
so
talk about that.
kind. Yeah, he donated 2 beacon check stations to the nonprofit. So we're going to get those up in our area. And I am just so excited about that. Dave McClure put one up in the Palisades area.
That's
So
awesome.
hopefully, between the ones that he did and the ones that Climb have done, between mine, we will be able to have like a pretty good
Yeah.
coverage of our area and make sure that everyone can check
Yeah.
in, make sure everything's working correctly.
Yep, yep. And this is where you and I talked about this ahead of time, so I hope this doesn't come as a surprise. But I do have a little mini soapbox I want to get on with everybody, and just to remind them that what, just having the equipment alone isn't
Oh, yeah.
enough, right? And
No.
I know you support that, and that's why I bring it up. Is the
Mhm.
idea that when we're doing shows like this, when we're providing avalanche awareness trainings and scholarships and stuff, it's really to get people to invest in their own safety, right, and to get out there. And so, do we want you out there without any gear? Heck no. Having some gear with a little bit of knowledge is better than none. But sometimes what we get nervous about in the avalanche industry is, do people get complacent thinking that, oh, because I'm wearing an airbag pack or because I have a beacon, now I'm safe? the irony is it actually puts them in probably a more dangerous situation in some cases, not everybody, but in some cases because they get this false sense of security, right? And so your message, same as mine, is get the training as well, right? And continue to kind of push that out there and get everybody, signed up for whatever avalanche classes are in their area. There's all kinds of them out there, whether it be
Absolutely.
awareness classes through Skidoo, through Erie, through your local avalanche center. They're all over the country, and they're more and more available all the time. And even more so now, this last year with COVID, is there's a lot of them available online. And so, frankly, we're running out of excuses of why people aren't getting avalanche awareness training, and then ultimately going on to a level one training down the road. So, anything you want to add to that before I kind of turn it back over to you here in a minute? But
Oh
it's
yeah.
such an important
No.
topic. I just want to make sure we get it out there again. So,
Absolutely, I completely agree, and I hope that my message is conveying that properly. Like
yeah,
the knowledge and education is what you need before anything else. And just
absolutely,
because you have that gear on does not make you invincible.
exactly.
Like, yeah, it definitely helps, but the education is best. And if you can't afford those classes, then contact me. Contact All American Heroes. Called, there's so many organizations
Yeah,
that are willing to provide that there's absolutely no reason that you don't have it,
yep.
and that is the most important thing that's gonna keep you safe for sure.
Yep, yep. And so we have a couple of more comments on here. I'm going to read out to you here so you can share with them too. Um, I got some, Travis from up in Canada says, that is the most dedicated program I've heard of yet. Summer, seriously, that's amazing. Wow, you're feeling a huge need for awareness. Mr. McCarthy here is saying we got Summer on the mountain this winter, so awesome for her. So you want to share that a minute? You got back on the mountain
He
this
did.
year.
He totally did. He totally twisted my arm. No, I've had a lot of invitations to go snowmobiling, and I was just honestly felt like it would be really triggering, and I did not want to do it. And so I've kind of been pushing it off. And so I think it was this March, just a couple months ago, he
Yeah,
convinced me to do it. He's like, let's just do it. It's going to be great. And I ended up having a
that's
blast.
amazing.
It was so much fun. Yeah. So I'm definitely planning on doing a riding clinic this winter. And
Very good.
I would like to take my own Avalanche One class. Honestly, I would. So yeah, I give Aaron full credit for that. That was his fault, but I had a blast.
Yep, that's awesome. And then we have somebody named Ken, I'm assuming Jagger, depending on how you want to pronounce it, says, you're awesome. Talking about you, I assume here. This is priceless for a very popular area that we all love and is very avalanche prone. Great job, Summer, and thank you. Lots of
Thank
smiles
you.
and hearts and snowflakes.
I love it. Thanks. I
Awesome,
appreciate
awesome.
the support.
Good news. So, what are kind of at this point, we've kind of established where you're at with the programs and what you've got going on, but have you in your mind thought about like kind of long-term goals for the project and like where you think this is going to go? And I know you shared with me that this is already way bigger than you ever thought it could be, right? Like from what you
Oh yeah.
imagined originally. And so now that you know what you know today, kind of what's your vision for going forward at this point?
Yeah, I mean, this is way more than I could have anticipated. It's kind of funny because I'm very much a goal-oriented person, and I didn't like set a goal like, okay, I want it to get this big and this is what I want to
Yeah.
do with it. It has literally been like I'm just along for the ride, and it continues to grow,
Yeah.
which I love and I will continue to do. Long term, I would love to see my signs all over the state of Idaho and
Yeah.
wherever else it's needed. That would
Yeah.
be incredible. I would love to provide bags in more areas than just my own immediate area.
Yeah.
That would be a dream come true. So, I'm kind of hoping going into this next season, I'll have my website rebuilt. I'll have a few more bags available for use and continue to build the awesome relationships that I have to make that happen. So,
Yeah.
if anyone needs some help making that happen in their area, any
Yeah.
snowmobile clubs, anything, like please reach out. I am more than willing to do what I can.
Yeah. And something else you referenced earlier in the episode here, and I'm going to bring back up because I think it's a really kind of cool tie-in from a lot of perspectives, and it's this. It's the fact that for you to move forward and to support your family at this point, you became a real estate agent. Can you talk to us a little bit about that journey and kind of like
Yeah.
why real estate, was the first thought, right? Obviously, you had to find a job to support your family, as Adam was
Yeah.
probably, you were staying at home with the kids at the time because, three kids is not an easy job by itself.
Yeah, no, no, it wasn't. And yeah, so I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time, for like 9.5 years, and I
Yeah,
was as soon as he passed away, I was terrified.
yeah,
I was just like, what am I going to do? Because that was my role,
yeah,
that he provided and I stayed at home, and we had a great partnership that way. I helped run his business, and
yep,
that was what we did. And so having that responsibility placed directly on my shoulders, I had a new appreciation for what it's like to be the breadwinner in the household. Like it absolutely terrified me. So my daughter was 8 weeks old, so I was very fortunate and able to take my time to consider what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I have my college degree, and I had a couple opportunities that popped up, and I just realized this does not make me accessible to my family as much as I need to be. With my
Yeah.
son who has special needs, I have a lot of doctor's appointments that we travel to. He's got therapy multiple times a week, and I can't be sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
So I need to work for myself. So I really evaluated what my strengths and what my abilities were, and I was like, I'm going to try real estate and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And end up, I took the classes to get my license, and I was like, oh, I like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
So
this is
there's a
fun.
couple of angles here I'm going to highlight. One is that you did it out of necessity to keep your family moving, right?
Yes,
The second piece here is all the amazing work you're doing around the Avalanche Project. You have to take care of home first before you can take care of the rest
absolutely.
of us. So I think to some degree, people thinking about you, and this is the part I'm going to highlight next, is the idea that guess what? You're a real estate agent in the number one snowmobile mecca in the entire United States. The
Yes,
West Yellowstone Island Park area is your home turf. And for
mhm,
anybody who's watching this, they're obviously snowmobilers in most cases, and many of them have visited. And there might be a few of them out there who are looking for some property and some real estate in the area that you're in, right? It's a big destination. People have second homes that then they rent out for VRBOs, I'm sure, and all that kind of stuff, right?
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
can you tell us, again, without sharing names, of course, but some success stories of people you've been able to help, maybe snowmobilers from out of state that, have
Yeah.
somehow heard about you? I think Aaron Stafford's a great example, right? He was your first deal that you did, right?
He was. Yeah, he was. I had my license for like 5 whole days. And he totally trusted me. And I just adore him for it because he has sent me so many referrals. But yeah, the majority of the business that I've done is in the Island Park area for the snowmobiling community and people who have just, found me online. And I was so fortunate because they're my new friends and amazing clients. And I love working in Island Park. Whenever I get to go to Island Park for work, I'm like, "Oh, I get to go to work today." Like, it's so beautiful and the properties are fantastic. And I absolutely love it. But yeah, the majority of people, they do have them as second homes and they Airbnb or VRBO them in the off season when they're not using them. And it's a fantastic investment. It really
Yeah.
is. So
And
I love
so
it.
the
Yeah.
the cool part is there's this little like mini circle here where one thing feeds the other. And if somebody's looking
Yeah,
for an amazing place that they can leverage you as a real estate agent, that's going to continue to support you, who can then continue to support Avalanche Awareness and Education, which continues to support
absolutely.
snowmobilers, right? So it's
Yeah.
this flywheel effect that we all get when we support each other and help each other out. So
Yeah. So if anyone needs anything in Island Park, you know where to find
awesome.
me.
Hey Edith, are we buying a house in Island Park anytime soon? I'll ask her when we get off
Yes,
the
you
show. So
are. Yes, you are. I can help
awesome.
you.
Awesome. I bet you know somebody, right? Awesome,
I know a
awesome.
couple.
Well, I tell you what, I'm looking through all my notes and there's nothing standing out to me that we've missed, but tell me
Okay.
in your notes, is there anything that we've missed from your perspective or have we covered the
Um,
this amazing story tonight in full?
yeah, I think we've covered it. We've covered everything that the Avalanche Project does and how to best support us. And, like I said, I try and make myself as accessible as possible on social media to anyone who has ideas or questions
Hmm.
or anything that I can help with. So I encourage everyone to reach out. If there is something in your area that you are lacking and you want to change, I try my very best to help. It is just me. So,
Yeah.
and I'm a little busy, but I do my very best
Well,
to make
Summer,
this a
let me
priority.
just share with you that you're not alone, right? Like you have an amazing network, and you can add me to that network now. And through ARI and through a few of the different avalanche centers and different folks around the country, I also have connections that if you don't have the answer, you can reach out to me, and I can try to find the answer. And I've been accused of being the connector before. There's people here watching that know this well. And I would tell you that nothing makes me more happy than someone who has a problem, me trying to help them solve it and connecting the dots on something specifically around avalanche safety and education. Like I would adore being involved as somebody who continues to support you through connecting you to the right people and helping introduce you to people around the country as needed. So
Thank you. I love it. I have received a lot of support from your side of the country recently. Both in my personal business and with the Avalanche Project. And, I'm just like, I don't know what it is with everyone from Washington, but they're all my new best friends.
Yep, yep. So there's a comment that I'm actually sharing on screen here below our faces now. I've done this a few times to the show. You'll see it afterwards if you go watch it back. But this one is especially important to me because this never happens. But my wife just dropped a comment in here, and I'm going to read it to you guys. So
Aw.
she's addressing you. She says, "Summer, you are so lovely. To be thinking of others
Oh,
during your time of grief shows you are truly selfless. Thanks for being so inspiring."
oh, thank you.
That makes
That's
me
so
cry.
kind.
Edith, you're amazing. God bless her. She's such an amazing person.
Oh,
That makes two
that's
of
really
you and her both, right? So, Aaron McCarthy says, "Thank you, Summer Anderson, for all you do for the community and being such a great person." So, lots of love coming your way. Go in the comments afterwards and read through them, respond to people. Feel free to share it anywhere. And for heaven's sakes, people, if you've watched the show this far and you haven't shared it yet, get off your duff and do it now. And a little side bonus, you're going to get in to win a pair of Fly Zone goggles from Fly Racing. So we get some amazing show sponsors that put out some great gear, and we'll do that. So, Summer, final words? Anything?
Okay. No, thank you so much for
All right.
letting me address your audience and get my story out. And, hopefully there's one person that's heard it that maybe it's changed their mindset just a little bit. That's all I can hope. So, but I
Great.
appreciate all the support from everyone. I mean, I am, like I said, over and over, I'm incredibly blessed. This
Yep.
community has been so supportive. So,
Yep. Speaking of being blessed, I'm going to remind everybody what all this live large stuff is about here. So, live large is live life to the fullest, make the most of every day, and make a difference to others, right? And so that's what we try to do on all these episodes, and the way I try to live my life, and hopefully inspire others to get out there and do the same. So, if you're ever interested in that, you can of course check out my website, search in the show notes. But the final words I always tell everybody is live large, and God bless you, and have an amazing night.
thanks, John.
Yep. Bye.